Hello and welcome to the NESN Soccer Show. I'm Marc, your Marcus, and we're back. Yeah, after a quick hiatus, 2 weeks, as we last previewed the World Cup qualifiers. That didn't go so well, but we're now into Champions League action. Yeah. And we're going to look ahead to the weekend, specifically in the Premier League. But just very quickly, we're going to take a look back at a few of the Champions League matches on match day 1. It was Tuesday and Wednesday. Let's start with Barcelona and Juve. Barca wins 3-0. Kind of maybe a little bit of a statement to the world that this demise of Barcelona, maybe not so fast. And they still have, you know, however you see it, one or two best player in the world. And, you know, what have you taken away from sort of this statement and the match itself?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. Barcelona is not dead yet. I know I've tried to write them off a little bit in the last couple of weeks, but they really, Juventus played them tough for at least the first 30 minutes or so, but over 90 minutes, Barcelona's class really showed. And Lionel Messi, when he's on, there's still no stopping him. He's 30 years old now, but still doing things that he used to do when he was 21. And I don't remember who scored the third goal, but it was a pretty comprehensive victory. But it's worth noting that Juventus was severely weakened for that game. They were missing Chiellini, Mandzukic, a number of players. They were without probably 4 or 5 automatic starters in their team. So they went to Barcelona and they hung tough for about 35, 40 minutes, and then they were picked apart for the last. And then Andres Iniesta, who is Barcelona's veteran leader, I guess he was reborn again. And I saw something on Twitter saying he's now freed of the responsibility of covering for Neymar, who didn't want to do the defensive work that he wanted to. Now Barcelona, maybe their balance is back between attack and defense that maybe had gone missing towards the back end of last season.
Well, I think it's mark that second match on the calendar at Juventus, because they'll probably they'll have something to say about this 3-0 loss. They don't lose 3-0 very often.
Yeah, and they knocked Barcelona out of the Champions League last season.
Right, so Tottenham, Dortmund, good game for Tottenham, not so great for Dortmund. I think maybe a little bit of a surprise. I think maybe a lot of people were, I think we said that we thought Dortmund was going to be able to come out on top against Tottenham, and when we looked at this group originally, we thought Tottenham really got the short end of the stick as far as the group draw, and that they're in sort of the group of death. But you know, what were your takeaways from this one?
Very good show for Tottenham. I don't know what Dortmund's goalkeeper. He didn't have a good game. He was beaten at the near post on 2 of the goals. The third goal, Harry Kane's second, maybe he could have stopped it. He didn't have a very good game, but credit to Tottenham. They have this this hex at Wembley Stadium where they can't seem to win. Well, they finally got a win at Wembley in the group stage. And this game against Dortmund, when we had our Champions League preview episode, that was one of the key games that we pointed out, because these teams, I think, are playing for second. Right. So it's like a little mini league between Tottenham and Dortmund. Advantage Tottenham, and we expected a little more out of Dortmund. You're right.
And Harry Kane has kind of been on fire. Scoring for England, scoring for Tottenham. Just can't be stopped right now.
29 goals in 2017. Only he and Cristiano Ronaldo have scored that many in Europe's Big Five. So
it's pretty good.
Harry Kane is he's Harry Kane, and you have to respect him as such.
And then finally, for Champions League, Liverpool and Sevilla, as seen on NESN.
Yes.
In the New England area.
Yeah, a little late schedule change.
Yeah, it's good stuff with working that out with Fox Sports, as they played, I think, on all their regionals. And they don't have a regional in New England, so it aired on NESN. But a draw, Liverpool and Sevilla 2-2. I think that's a good result for Liverpool. Good enough, I think, for what they're hoping for. I mean, because they have a pretty easy group.
Right. Bad result for Liverpool.
You think
because if they don't come out on top of the group, that leaves them at the mercy of the round of 16 draw, where maybe they get matched up with Barcelona or PSG or something, and that could be tough for them. So Liverpool really wants to win the group. This game was a missed opportunity. They went down by a goal, clawed 2 back. They were up by a goal, and then conceded an equalizer. And you know, Sevilla takes a valuable point back to Spain, and then Liverpool's got to go there later on in the competition, maybe a few months from now, and get a result. So this is a game Liverpool really could have won. Once again, individual mistakes are, they become a problem. Guys like Alberto Moreno, he struggled against Sevilla in the Europa League final, struggled again defensively in the second half. So it's kind of same old Liverpool problems.
Right.
Going forward, they were fantastic, outstanding. They got a nice deflection on their second goal. Sadio Mane's goal just deflected cruelly over the goalkeeper. But attacking wise, they were good. They created a lot of chances, 20-something shots, 8 or 9 on goal. Sevilla, 2 shots, 2 goals.
Well, what's interesting about these Champions League matches is that the first match, especially like when you face the team in the first match, the next time you face them, your roster or their roster and their lineup and their shape and form and fitness can be completely different. So as much as we want to analyze match day 1, kind of just got to keep looking forward.
Right. And that's why there's only 6 group stage games. So these games are all so important. So it's not like Liverpool drops points and then we'll just get them back next time.
No.
Because that's not a guarantee. So every time you take the field in the Champions League, you have to make the most of it, like Ronaldo.
Right. Okay, well, we always like to be looking forward on the NESN Soccer Show.
Yeah.
So Bayern Munich and their manager, Carlo Ancelotti, what's the latest here?
Carlo Ancelotti on Sunday, a former player, Mario Basler, I think is his name, said, according to one of his trusted sources, that Ancelotti has signed a contract with a Chinese team to take over in January. Bayern Munich will be on winter break in January, and basically what he's saying is that their coach is going to walk out halfway through the season. Now, the next day, Ancelotti said, "This is a joke, and I won't even respond to such nonsense. That's what you have to do." But this is a thing where Bayern Munich has started the season very slowly. They beat Anderlecht 3-0 in the Champions League, and I think that was their first emphatic win. But none of their performances have been convincing. They lost to Hoffenheim in the Bundesliga just last weekend. Ancelotti reportedly has problems with Thomas Muller, who is Mr. Bayern Munich right now.
Mr. Germany,
Mr. Germany. He's 2 years into, I think, a 3-year contract. This is year 2, and it's just not going swimmingly for him.
But why? What is there that's not swimmingly about being the Bayern Munich manager?
It's expectation is the problem. There's only one goal, winning the Champions League. Winning the Bundesliga and the German Cup in the same season, it's not enough. Winning just the Bundesliga, not enough. Not winning anything domestically, you're probably on the way
fired
out.
Anyway.
It's really, it's Champions League or bust if you're the Bayern Munich manager in this day and age. And that's one thing. And then the other thing is this thing called FC Hollywood. That's what they call Bayern Munich in Germany because there's always drama.
Right.
And they're always winning, but there's always drama. Teammates falling out with each other, players falling out with coaches, coaches falling out with the board of directors, chairman of the board going to prison, chairman of the board getting out of prison, taking control again. So, FC Hollywood strikes again. And I think this is just another example. I know in the past when things have happened, I've written, okay, this is going to derail Bayern Munich, but they're just so used to it that they always just keep going and keep trucking.
Probably won't affect them too much.
Yeah.
But, all right, but before I get to why China? Is it just money? Is it just money? Because he could probably get a lot of money from maybe another European club, but...
No, if somebody offered you $5 million a year to do this show in China, would you...
I'd probably do it.
There you go.
Okay, so who could potentially replace him if all these rumors are true?
Well, here comes the jockeying aspect. Ancelotti says, no, I'm not going anywhere. This is a joke. But within 24 hours, names start to emerge.
Yeah.
There are two that jump to mind in my mind. One is Jogi Löw. He's Germany's national team coach. He's probably going to leave after the 2018 World Cup. So if Ancelotti holds on, stays there, Löw could be a natural successor. The other one is Julian Nagelsmann. He's the coach at Hoffenheim, and he is 30 years old. 30. He's kind of the boy wonder of soccer coaches in Europe right now. He was named Bundesliga Coach of the Year last year, took Hoffenheim to the Europa League this year, almost took him to the brink of the Champions League, but they ended up in the Europa League.
Yeah.
He's supposed to be a star. I think at this point in his career and at this point in his life, he's 30. Probably a little too young for Bayern Munich.
Probably can't handle all that.
Yeah, you have to be a really strong character to work there at Bayern Munich. But just within a day of the Ancelotti rumor coming up, he said, I'm happy right now, but working at Bayern Munich would make me a little bit happier. So it's almost like the jockeying and the people are throwing their names in the hat. It's one of the most coveted jobs in all the soccer world. But I think for Nagelsmann, it might be a little bit too early for him.
Yeah. Okay, well, we'll see what happens there. I guess we kind of have to just wait until January.
That's what we do.
But other coaching changes, this one actually happened. Crystal Palace, Frank de Boer fired. Shortest tenure ever in Premier League history.
Yeah.
Shorter than Bob Bradley.
Shorter than, yeah. I thought Bob Bradley got a raw deal last year at Swansea.
Yeah.
Frank de Boer was fired after 77 days.
Yeah. So for anybody that's thinking that Bob Bradley was fired just because he's American, it could happen to anybody.
Yeah, he's a Dutchman.
But okay, so why did this happen so quickly? Like, it can't even be a good. It's impossible to be a good decision if it happened just this quickly, right?
A good decision to hire him or fire him?
Well, I mean, I guess after you've already hired him, so yes, it's a bad decision to fire him after just giving him 2 months, 3 months, whatever it was.
There's so much money in the Premier League that it makes some club directors crazy. The thought of relegation and not being able to sip from that that Sky Sports and worldwide media teat. They say things are bad. We can't afford to let these results get worse, so they pull the trigger now. I think that's it. It's relegation, which maybe 10 years ago or 20 years ago was something that teams would stomach and then let coaches really build a long-term foundation.
Right.
Now in the Premier League, not a chance.
Yeah.
If it looks like you might get relegated, they're going to fire you, even if it's just after 77 days. Not even 4 games. I think he had 4 Premier League games, 5 games overall. Now, the problem is that they decided in late August, before right at the beginning of the international break, that they were going to make a change. Started speaking to people, speaking to the players, really gauging the mood. And the problem with de Boer is that his personality just didn't fit with that group of hard-working players, kind of hard scrabble. Crystal Palace isn't a place where stars go, so it's a lot of guys that get through on grit, a lot of guys with maybe a chip on their shoulder. They've been overlooked or rejected by other teams. And de Boer's, he came in to really change the way Crystal Palace plays and put in a nice passing style of soccer. They tried to do that a couple seasons ago under other coaches. Didn't work. Tried to do it again this offseason. And all the reports were saying that de Boer just wasn't getting along with players. He wanted certain transfers in the transfer window.
Yeah.
He didn't get them. Didn't see eye to eye with the board. The board was signing players that maybe he didn't request or didn't like. All that happened within not even 3 months, 2.5 months.
Okay, well, I understand that Crystal Palace, frankly, just will never really be top of the Premier League type of club. But if you want to move beyond just the gritty guys and fighting every other year to avoid relegation, maybe you do need a philosophy change, and maybe these tactics of trying to just across the Premier League, firing a coach at the first sign of relegation rather than trying to build something that will give you long-term, middle-of-the-road Premier League success, where maybe you're getting into Europa League and stuff like that. Like, you have to build. You're never going to be able to just hire a guy in January and then he avoids relegation for you, and then the next 5 years he's still the guy that's making things happen. It's always going to be a flash-in-the-pan coach that maybe turns players around for a short period of time.
A little bump.
And then you're right back where you were. And, like, I guess if you think that you can stay in Premier League by doing that over a course of, like, a 10-year period, but it seems like maybe if you do kind of try to go with the philosophy, you can actually have sustained success. And it's more likely to have sustained success by believing in a coach and his philosophy rather than, you know, a replacement that's maybe got some sort of reputation that's going to fire the guys up.
That is great advice, Mark. So what did Crystal Palace do?
Yeah.
They went with 70-year-old Roy Hodgson.
Not a long-term,
alternative. 2-year contract. He brought his trusted assistant, Ray Lewington, with him. And I saw written in a paper yesterday that he is Hodgson's successor at Crystal Palace.
Yeah,
and I'm
sweet.
like, he hasn't even had his first day of work yet, and they're talking about his replacement. Premier League fans and England fans know all about Roy Hodgson.
Yeah.
He's well-traveled, seasoned. Once upon a time, he was highly respected, but there was the World Cup 2014 disaster and the Euro 2016 debacle.
Okay.
Back-to-back, two of England's worst performances in major tournaments. And yeah, he was looking to, I guess, get back. I thought he was gone or that he had retired, but he was looking to get back into the game, back into England, and he goes to his local club. He grew up in South London, right near Crystal Palace, dreamed of playing for the team, wasn't good enough to play for them, ended up becoming a coach, went all around the world and reached the heights of the international game, and now he's come full circle back home. I think he's been in the coaching game for about 35 years. So,
nuts.
Yeah, welcome back, Roy Hodgson.
Well, yeah, I mean, just like what I was just saying, I'm pretty sure in 2 years we're going to be talking about how Crystal Palace is avoiding relegation, and they've just fired Roy Hodgson's replacement because he wasn't good enough after 2 months.
Yeah.
And he was just not, you know, it's going to be more of the same.
There's nothing long-term about a 70-year-old coach. He's the oldest manager in Premier League history. I think you're right. Crystal Palace needs something long-term. Short-termism rules.
Well, okay, not to linger on this too long, but it's almost like, because all these Premier League teams facing relegation are doing this. We're trying to find these short-term answers.
Or a quick fix.
And it seems like if you could somehow stomach it and patiently build, and you did it effectively, it's like the best time to have that approach. Whereas, you know, 20 years ago, it was very difficult to do it that way.
Right.
It's almost like you're sort of ahead of the curve, even though you might take a step back at first.
Yeah, I think with, you know, with some teams, there's one team that comes to mind that, you know, has managed to suffer relegation and then come back stronger. That's Southampton. They went down, I think, to the 3rd or 4th division 7 or 8 years ago, and they worked their way back. And this is all because of careful planning, not at the managerial level, but at the board level.
Yeah.
Where they always have a plan where if this coach, like Mauricio Pochettino, gets poached by a bigger team, they always have a plan for that.
Yeah.
If this player is bought by a bigger team, they always have a plan for replacing him. So maybe Crystal Palace needs to get on that train of, you know, really looking out 3-4 years ahead, 2-3 years ahead.
Yeah.
The problem is they have a bit of instability at the boardroom level. Their longtime chairman, Steve Parish, sold a big stake in the team to American investors, I think about a year and a half ago, and I think they've been through 2 or 3 managers since then.
Yeah.
So whoever's calling the shots at Crystal Palace doesn't have a firm control on things. I don't think.
I guess it does also depend on the investors. Like, there are a good deal of investors that see investing in a soccer team as a 4 or 5 year plan, and they want the value of the team to go up significantly in that 4 or 5 year span, which does not include a year in the championship.
No,
it cannot. So that in and of itself is really the problem, where the ownership does not have the patience, or it's just not an option for them.
Right.
All right, but we're not going to linger on it too much, because every
Crystal
single
Palace.
topic you can talk about, for forever. But let's get into some actual matches. There's 2 very interesting matches this weekend. Even like when I remember looking through La Liga, Serie A, Bundesliga, the French League, and the Premier League, and I pretty much came down to these 2 Premier League matches that were of any interest. But first up is Man U versus Everton. Rooney's return to Old Trafford. There'll be a lot of feels going on. It'll be a little weird. I'm going to make sure I'll be more interested in the 30 minutes before the match starts than I will be in the match itself, almost, or whatever.
What if Rooney scores?
Well, that's the thing. That's the only thing that could really sway it. But Man United is off to a very good start. Everton is off to an okay start, I guess. But what with Rooney returning are you sort of excited about with this match?
Rooney returning to prove a point.
Yeah.
He was kind of phased. He was phased out at Manchester United.
Yeah.
His last 2.5, maybe 3 seasons were, by his lofty standards, subpar. And the club knew that. The thing is, he was the top earner at the club. He was the club captain. So it was hard to just you couldn't just force him out right away. You had to do it in a way that was politically acceptable to the Man United crowd and the board and Rooney and his family.
Yeah.
So he probably got 2 more seasons than he otherwise would have if he wasn't Wayne Rooney.
Yeah.
And Rooney has always been a fighter, so I expect him to take the field at Old Trafford with a point to prove.
Yeah.
And I think if he scores, will he celebrate? Won't he celebrate? He's back at his favorite team. He's playing for Everton, so I would expect him to celebrate.
Yeah,
but I don't know.
But sometimes it's a thing with soccer players where they don't celebrate against their old clubs.
Yeah. That's kind of a standard. Where if you have a good relationship with a club, you leave on good terms, you don't celebrate.
Do you think he doesn't have a good relationship with Man United?
We'll find out if he scores. Rooney's their all-time leading scorer. He's a Man United legend. He won everything there is to win with Manchester United, and they still said, okay, we've had enough of you.
Yeah.
You can go. The other thing about Rooney's return to Manchester United is he was arrested for drunk driving about 2 weeks ago, right at the start of the international break. I think he's played 1 game since then.
Yeah.
I believe Everton lost to Tottenham. He might play another one on Thursday in the Europa League. So this is really, this is the fresh Wayne Rooney scandal. These things pop up over the course of his career, but I think the fans might have a funny song or two about this. Wayne Rooney drinks when he wants. I don't know. It's I'll be watching for that. So the reception will be interesting.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the big storyline around the match, because I would guess that Man United will take care of business and win this match.
Yeah.
But also Rooney, you mentioned the drunk driving, but he did start the season pretty well. I think
Sure
2 goals
did.
in 2 matches.
Yeah.
So maybe now he's sort of like sobered up and he's ready to get back to it.
We'll see. Yeah.
All right, but Arsenal versus Chelsea, 2 big clubs, 1 big match.
London versus London.
Yeah. What are you excited about here?
To see which Arsenal will show up. Will it be the Arsenal that lost 4-0 at Liverpool, or will it be the Arsenal that beat Bournemouth 3-0 last weekend? I saw both games, and it was 2 completely different Arsenal teams.
Yeah.
Even though most of the players were the same ones on the field. Something happened in terms of confidence and cohesion at Arsenal. Looked similar to the crisis they went through last season before the Liverpool game.
Yeah.
Now that the transfer market, the transfer window is closed, everything is settled down. Alexis Sanchez is staying. Mesut Ozil's staying, at least for the next few months.
Right.
Arsenal looked like a different team on last Saturday when they beat Bournemouth. Granted, Bournemouth, they look like they might be in free fall,
right.
but Arsenal
probably gonna fire their coach soon.
Maybe, I don't know. But Arsenal, I just see what you did there. But yeah, Arsenal really, I mean, it was night and day compared to the Liverpool performance. So which one is going to go to Stamford Bridge? We know which one usually goes to Stamford Bridge. It's the team that gets mauled by Liverpool.
Right.
Chelsea beat them 6-0 a couple years ago in Arsene Wenger's 1000th, was it this 1000th game? It was a milestone game,
yeah.
And Chelsea tore them apart. So we don't know. Now, Chelsea, I kind of wrote them off at the beginning of the season.
Well, they've been kind of playing very well since
They have,
then.
yeah. Alvaro Morata's been scoring for them, all headers, but, you know, he started really well in his Chelsea career. I thought the Diego Costa problem would really have a big impact on Chelsea, but it looks like they're trucking right along. And,
yep.
you know, if somebody's going to take the title off of them, they're really going to have to be good, because
right.
Chelsea started the season really well.
Yeah. Okay. Well, those are the two big Premier League matches to keep your eye on this weekend. Kind of the two big matches in Europe.
Yeah.
But before we sign off, we want to just pivot to the U.S. men's national team,
right.
as we so often do. ALEXI LALAS went on a little bit of a rant during the MLS Game of the Week on Sunday.
Yeah.
And I mean, I asked you if you thought it was a little bit of a show, and I kind of agree with that too. But at the same time, I do think that ALEXI LALAS believes the things that he's saying. He said them in sort of a showmanship way on national TV and everything, but he's sort of right. And this, you know, the tattooed millionaires and
soft
and Christian Pulisic, the Wonder Boy, and kind of coming. I've never heard anybody call him the Wonder Boy yet. I mean, I knew exactly who he was talking about when he said it, but
no, ALEXI LALAS called everybody, all the big players on the United States, out by name.
Yeah. And then the players that didn't get called out, he was like, "You don't deserve to be called out."
Yeah.
It was just like, yeah, he's sort of right. But I think he did mention, he said it in his rant that they lacked sort of the fighting identity that is like United States soccer.
Yeah.
And sort of like the never give up and
physicality,
scrape and claw. Kind of like, I think the whole CONCACAF really identifies with that. But I think this is the perfect thing to have happen, because as much as maybe, you know, the Clint Dempseys and Michael Bradleys are like, they scoff at it like in public, even when they're around each other, I think in private they're probably thinking to themselves, you know what? I'm like, screw ALEXI LALAS. Like, this guy hasn't played in 20 years. Like, we know how to play. We know that we're able to do this. We have 2 matches left versus teams that we can beat, and we just had to go out there and prove it, and we need to leave no doubt that we belong in the World Cup. And so I think they probably should have come to that realization anyway, but it's just another little dig by LALAS to just be like, wake up, guys.
Michael Bradley, the United States captain, replied with an even better dig. He said 2 things. One is that you use it as motivation, because you remember everybody that doubted you along the way. And then he said 2, now ALEXI LALAS' rant, in the rant he said, Michael Bradley, we don't need you to be zen. We need you to play better. And Michael Bradley's response, he went zen. He said, I've been reading something lately that came to mind. It said, lions don't listen to the opinions of sheep.
Oh,
so,
nice.
Yeah, he threw the zen right back at him. I thought that was great. The LALAS rant, a number of things stuck out. One, he's definitely performing, because that's what
he does.
ALEXI LALAS does.
Yeah.
2, I'm glad he did it. And I'm glad he ranted, because this U.S. team hasn't been playing well boy.
In like a year.
Yeah, let's say since the World Cup. But,
yeah.
This particular team hasn't played well. You know, we watched the Gold Cup. We covered
it doesn't really
heavily.
count. It's not the same. Yeah.
Well,
like,
you know, the Gold Cup, they didn't play. Maybe one of those games was great. On the way to victory, they didn't play well.
Yeah.
So somebody has to say, hey, this isn't good enough. You know, I like to watch all the national team games, and they've been difficult to watch lately. So LALAS came out and said it. Now, the thing about soccer in America is that everybody involved has this obligation to what they call
like
grow the game.
Support U.S. no matter what.
And which means they're always selling, always trying to sell and get more casual fans on board, as opposed to saying this team is playing like trash.
Right.
So everybody step it up.
I think ALEXI LALAS is one of the guys that's sort of on board with that philosophy of like grow the game.
It started with him.
In an odd way, it's like sort of makes sense that he's kind of the first guy that I can really remember that actually went on like a real rant about U.S. soccer.
Breaking ranks with growing the game and saying, hey, this is bad. This team is not playing well.
Yeah. When they can be playing, they should be playing better.
Yeah.
It's not like, oh, we're just not good enough. That's not the case. We're good enough.
Yeah. So the way he went about it was definitely timed and definitely done in a way to get maximum attention. And it does. I've seen it picked up in British newspapers, seen it picked up in the Spanish newspapers, Mexican newspapers, Univision had it. It's gone everywhere. And I don't have a problem with anything LALAS said.
Well, neither do I. I think that does it for most of us. A quick, not really even a final word, just a look ahead for us. We are going to have some interviews coming up. One for sure will be with a youth development coach who helps develop players, trying to make sort of like the U17s and the U19s and the U21s United States men's national teams. A guy named John Robinson, who used to play for the Welsh national team and played in the Premier League, now coaches in the United States and Florida. But stay tuned in the weeks to come. You can follow us on NESN.com/podcast, YouTube.com/NESN, and iTunes/NESN.com. Did you have any sort of final word that you wanted to hit? All right. Champions League back underway, September 26th. World Cup qualifiers, October 6th. And we'll be back next Thursday. So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week.